Got it. So today's workshop's on well-being, and I'm sure you guys have had some time to really reflect on what that might mean for you. So before we delve into the meat of the subject, I thought it might be a bit relevant for me to touch on my background in terms of where or what I've been doing with my life. So I grew up in Hackney, which is a state comprehensive school that I went to, and I stayed on there for my sixth form. And then I went to London Medical School. So I was at Barts for the majority of the time, and then I did my BSc at Imperial. And then I decided to not leave the town. I stayed in East London for my foundation year training. So this is normally the sort of story a lot of medics want to hear, but I don't enjoy it so much because you don't actually get to learn so much about the person. So let's try that again. So we'll keep the first part, which is I did grow up in Hackney. And just because I know that there might be a few of you guys, or probably all of you, who can relate to some of the things I'm about to say. It was really tough growing up, in a disadvantaged community where you have big dreams. Oftentimes when I was growing up, I thought I just sort of limit myself to what I can do with my life. But it was really my mom that was pushing me on to, actually dream big and actually try. Because when you push yourself further and you might fall a little, you might still be quite close to where you want to be. And being in a disadvantaged community where, the support in a state school wasn't perhaps the kind of support that I would have got in, I don't know, even a state grammar or like a private school, it meant that I had to be really independent. So taking charge, not just of my A levels and my grades, but also looking after myself. How do I look after myself in an environment where it's challenging, whether it's at home, whether it's at school, with bullying and that sort of thing, and also like looking for opportunities for yourself and looking after your mind and body. So after that, I did go to med school. So it's quite an interesting one because I've always been a creative at heart. I describe myself as somebody who is as a creative who did medicine rather than a medic with creative interests. And this is a really important distinction for the following reason. In the first 2 years of medical school, I was very much like, okay, I'm going to be a doctor now. I have to put my creative stuff aside. And anybody who was mentioning art or anything like that, I just didn't want to hear about it because I felt like, okay, you're really touching on something that I really wish I was doing, but I thought I couldn't do. And then came towards the end of second year where I realized I was really miserable. And the reason was because I wasn't pursuing my genuine hobbies. And so my mental health just went and went down. So academically, I was doing quite well, actually, but I wasn't happy. I was giving my all and neglecting a big part of my being, which is why, Ola talking about, you guys thinking about what passions do you have to turn them into projects. But the idea being, what are your passions that you want to do more of while you're doing med school? It's not about doing med school and that's it. And then when you do your F3 or, when you have time out, then you can pursue your passions. You got to be doing your passions, pursuing those alongside your work, because medical school is a part of your life. It's not your life. That's one really, really important point to understand whilst you're still a student, especially a first year one. So basically when I learned the power of my hobbies, that's when I also went through this whole process of mindfulness where I really prioritized my well-being. And it wasn't one of those things where, med school is very good at teaching you science and medicine, but from my experience, maybe a lot of it has changed now, but from my experience, maybe we had like a couple talks here and there on well-being, but nobody really coaches you to train your mind. But your mindset is very, very important. And, being able to look after yourself and knowing how to look after yourself when you've graduated and you've become a doctor. Another interesting turning point for me in med school was I sort of aced my way through medical school, but then I went and flopped finals, which is like a big thing. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because in your first year, one of the biggest fears that a lot of students have is, oh my gosh, what if I fail my exams? And one thing you got to realize is like, you can fail your exams and resit them. But if you fail your mental or physical health, it might be a little bit more difficult to sort of bounce back from that. Think about it. Once your physical and mental health is in check, you can do a lot of things, right? You can be productive, you can wake up and want to do things. But if, for example, you wake up with back pain, you know, or just think of another physical health problem, or you wake up not feeling right mentally, do you think about how the rest of your day or your other productive things are impacted if your mind or body or both aren't right. The next thing on my timeline is COVID 2022 holiday. It's not 2022, it's 2020. But yeah, so during that holiday, we weren't allowed to do our lecture. So I had a period of time between, was it like March and around August to just exist at home, not leave my house. So for me, one of the things that was easy to do was to revise for my exams, because my resit exam, but then during that period, I was like, listen, if I just revise for exams, I'm going to drive myself crazy. So I started making more YouTube content. And I had a lot of people telling me on YouTube, oh my gosh, you're going to fail your exams again if you're making YouTube videos. Well, actually, for me, that was a hobby, right? If I wasn't prioritizing my hobby, obviously there's a balance, but if I wasn't doing my hobbies, then I'd feel quite miserable. So YouTube for me included, like teaching. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy, reflecting on my life. It allows me to just sit in front of a camera when no one's around and just think about what I'm actually thinking and feeling. Allow me to do that. Allow me to incorporate illustrations, experiment with animations, a little bit of singing, and basically it brought together loads of my creative interests into one place. So that for me really kept my sanity whilst I was doing my revision as well. So if I needed a break, I turned to something that was a bit different from revising, and then sort of flicking between those two. And fortunately for me, my well-being was at an all-time high. And a lot of people said, during COVID, it was a really difficult time. And it was for many people. I'm sure it was, but for me personally, just being in my own environment and pursuing my hobbies, looking after myself and ensuring that, those close to me were also well as well, was actually a time that I thrived. And then I did F1 that August till the following August. It was very uneventful. There were some things that happened. And now I can't see the rest of the screen because, I'm over that region. Okay. There, got rid of it. So FY2 is an interesting one, because remember I said to you guys that my mental and physical well-being was at an all-time high. There came to a point where I sort of took that for granted. And now the way that I describe mental and physical well-being is by the following analogy. So imagine you go to the gym, right? You're working out, you have in your mind certain fitness goals. You spend some months or even years working to get to that goal, and you're like, damn, I look good. You stand in front of the mirror, admiring yourself. You're like, yes, this is what I wanted. I'm there now. And now imagine going to sit on a couch now for the rest of the year. You don't go to the gym. What's going to happen? Right? You're going to lose that body goal. So if you want to keep the place that you're at, you have to keep exercising it. You have to maintain it. You have to put in the work to maintain it. So my issue was, I was like, damn, like my mental health is so good. I don't got to do much. And then stresses came along. I've written here targeted on the timeline, like bullying, that sort of thing. And because I wasn't actively doing things to prioritize my mental well-being, it started to all go downhill. Towards the end of F2, I realized that I was burnt out. And then when I completely stopped working, that's when everything hit. And I realized that actually I wasn't burnt out. I was just outright depressed. And so now you might be wondering, oh, why the hell is someone with poor mental health sitting here lecturing me on mental well-being or physical well-being? Well, if you don't want to end up like I was in October last year, then maybe you want to listen up. Next. Oh, okay, there you go. So in terms of what I'm doing now since October, I very much had time to process where I am at with things. So I've been working less, pursuing my hobbies, and also sharing my process through all of this on YouTube. Because I think mental health is something that affects a lot of doctors, a lot of junior doctors. I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but it is high compared to other professions, especially in the current climate. So, sharing my real experiences with you guys is sort of there to help you learn lessons such that you either ideally avoid ending up where I was, or if you end up where I was, then you have like some sort of a kick or motivation to get better. So what is well-being? So this is a definition I came across this morning online. It was from some well-being website on Google. Well-being refers to the state of being healthy, happy, and comfortable, both physically and mentally. There's other things like spiritual well-being and, like social well-being, but the main ones we'll focus on for now is physical and mental. So in medicine, why is this important? You're going to be looking after patients, right? And that involves listening to them, examining them. And there's this whole emphasis in medical school about compassion. So what is compassion? Compassion is wanting to ease the suffering of those around us in our community, right? So if somebody's hurt, you want to cure them. If somebody's going through something tough, you want to listen to them, right? So here's the thing, there's like showing empathy versus actually being empathetic. So to have what I'd say like fake compassion, is like wanting to do that, but not from a place of, it being genuine. True compassion can only be achieved if you have that for yourself, first and foremost. So if you've done things to address your own suffering, that involves looking after yourself, then you can want to look after other people. So in the best interest of patients and to ensure their patient safety, you have to look after yourself. Yeah. So if you don't look after yourself, really, how are you going to look after others? That's the question to think about. So yeah, just have a think about perhaps whether you fall into the category of like exercising true compassion, and it takes practice. It's not so easy. It involves waking up in the day and asking yourself, okay, what have I done for myself that means that I'm like happy now to give to others? For me, that looks more like waking up in the morning hours earlier than I want to go to work. So if I'm going to work at 9 o'clock, believe me, I'm up at 4:30. So that means that I get to work out, drink tea in the morning, watch sunrise, listen to the birds, go out for a walk, come back, eat breakfast number 2, because I know in ward rounds I might struggle to eat. So once I've done those things for myself and I've journaled and I've emptied my mind out, I'm willing to want to listen to other people. So if I go into work and someone's talking to me, I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, I've got other things to talk about. Like, why are you talking to me? Find someone else to talk to. I'm not like that. I'm very happy to listen to other people. I'm very happy to be there for patients, to be there for colleagues, and like actually be able to help them from a place of compassion, so that long term, I'm not going to resent them, right? If you're giving your time and energy to people, and at some point you're like, oh, I'm resenting the fact that I'm giving them that time and not for myself, then you have to ask yourself if that's true compassion that you have or not. So in terms of how and when you put well-being first, there's a lot of chat about, oh, once I've done this, then I'll do that. Once I've sat this exam, then I'll look after, then I'll go to the gym. Once I've, sat my exams, then I'll look into mindfulness and how I can, get this self-help book to sort out my life. It shouldn't really work like that. You should be doing these things alongside yourself. And even the fact that you guys have exams is actually a good reason to want to look after yourself now. You can learn how to look after yourself whilst you have exams, so that when you have bigger hurdles in the future are more, and believe me, as a doctor, you have bigger hurdles than just exams. There's going to be sitting exams as well as doing a bunch of other things. So it's good to, use the fact that you have exams to practice maintaining good physical and mental well-being. It all starts now. There we go. I'm at school. Oh, another thing I wanted to add here is for you guys, I'm assuming if we don't have another episode of a pandemic, of COVID, then you'll be doing your electives at the end of med school, and then you'll go straight into working as a doctor. So that's not that much time. Things are going to be hectic, right? Depending on what your elective is, whether you're chilling in Bali or whether you're, in a London hospital in A&E, like actually working. So yeah, when you're in that period, it is difficult to build the skills that will make you resilient as a doctor. So that's why you need to be learning that stuff in medical school now. So yeah, that's the point I wanted to make. And another thing that we have been touching on before was where Ola had mentioned while I was away, something about, Ola, what was it about? So not just surviving, but thriving, right?
Thriving without sinking.
Say that again?
Thriving without sinking.
Thriving without sinking. So we've got a similar one here. Why survive when you can thrive? Which is exactly what I'm trying to make the point of, which is, medicine is very challenging at medical school as well as life as a doctor. You can get by, and be miserable or unhappy, not putting your well-being a priority, or you can learn to do that, and once you've taken care of your mental and physical well-being, then other things can fall into place, right? It's going back to, if your mind is right, your body's right, you're unstoppable. Yeah. I'm gonna take some water. Now, the next thing that I'd want to touch on is the stress curve. I would do a poll about who's heard of this before, but I don't think I can get much engagement at the moment. So I'll just talk about it. So the stress curve has performance on this is the y-axis, and then stress on the x-axis. And basically what it's saying is if you have a little bit of stress, you actually do better. But then if you have too much stress, then your performance drops. And that's when burnout, and in my case, depression, I was right at the end of that curve, kicks in. And actually, you don't do so well then. So since you guys have exams coming up, what's important for you is to stay on the left side of this curve, or the dotted line. So, managing your well-being actually oftentimes reduces your stress levels, right? If you're feeling a little bit stressed and you go to the gym and you work out, your endorphins are everywhere, you might feel more ready to actually go and get in another, session of studying done, just giving an example. So this is another reason why you should try and lower your stress levels from putting your well-being first. And this is something to read. Now, before we get on to the workshop, I want you guys to think about how, growing up in the disadvantaged background, think about all the times that you had to really do things for yourself, for what you really wanted, and try and bring that motivation back here. Because at med school, they teach you well-being not as well as perhaps the Krebs cycle is taught. So you have to be going out of your way and really putting the effort in to nourish your mind and body so that other things can fall into place and you can be thriving and not just swimming in a pool. So before we get on to the workshop, I am told that everyone can get a break to grab their tea and relax. So you'll have 5 minutes to go and make yourself a cup of tea or coffee